Well, welcome everybody to our little chat room. We're a nice little cohesive group here, and I feel like we're preaching to the choir here because all of you are great cooks. And, not that we're going to necessarily share recipes, but we hope that we would have kind of an open dialogue about some of the traditions that you keep and how you go about preparing for the holiday, for dinner, for your Seder, and our traditions are so varied because we have such an open synagogue with so many different connections. We have the ones who have just moved here. We have friends that have been in the synagogue for 50, 60 years. And, over the time, things change. And so we want to kind of share some of that with you. Jeannie is my cohort here, and she's been a great help in when we talk about things that we have in common and things that we do. The one thing that Jeannie and I do have in common, and I think many of our congregation does, is that we're half Ashkenazic and half Sephardic in our family. So how do you bring those traditions into making your Seder more all-inclusive and not leaving out half your family on either side? So, one of the things that I do is it tends to be a whole lot more work, but I've got the side that I have to make the gefilte fish for, and every year it's we have the whole big discussion about, is there enough salt in it? Is it sweet enough? How much salmon did you put in this year? And then of course we have a con limon, which is the sauce thick enough. You have to eat it with matzah. You can't mop it up with bread. So, you have to make sure that you make it extra thick so that you can get it on the matzah. So, little things like that. But a lot of thought goes into preparing for how you're going to even present your food, because you have to make sure that your Seder takes quite a while to get through, and you don't want anything to be dried out or whatever, and also you don't want to be getting up in the middle of your preparation or your Seder to be working in the kitchen. So one of the things that I do every year is start with a list of what I'm going to serve and who's coming. And I actually found a list here from 2003, and my menu isn't any different except for last year when we were two of us and, instead of 25. So anyway, so Jeannie, I'm going to throw it to you and let you give us a little of your insight.
Okay, good evening, everybody. I was going to mention how different things are today than from the time when I was young. And I grew up in a very small town, and there really was no, and this of course was in the, in the 1940s and 50s, there was really no kosher food for sale in our town. We had to get all our kosher food from Columbus, which was 3 hours away by car. And my parents used to go 2 weeks before Pesach on a Sunday, and they did all the shopping there, and whatever they didn't buy, we didn't have. And of course, mostly, we made everything ourselves. There were very few prepared items in those years. So people who can go back a few years and think about Pesach then, and then they think about Pesach today, when you go to the store, they have more junk food than plain food. It's hard to get the basics, but they got all the other stuff that you can buy. So in some respects, the preparation for Pesach these days is sort of different. As far as the Ashkenazic and the Sephardic go, if you're in the place where both your Ashkenazic side and your Sephardic side are together, that's one thing. But I wasn't that way. I was Ashkenazic and then I was Sephardic, and I never had to really mix because we were never together with both families on Pesach. And like Terry said, every year I sort of make the same thing. It's like Shabbat, only it's Pesach. I don't bother myself to make all the fancy dishes that you see in the cookbooks because it takes an awful lot of time at a time when you have more than enough to do. So I don't know if there's anybody out there who would like to share a bit of their childhood experience of Pesach. You know, if you lived in a different country, or if you're 25 right now, or if you're 35 or you're 55 or you're 75. So if anybody would like to share with us a little bit about their Pesach a while back, please feel free. Yes. Yeah, Evelyn, you were in Israel, Nahon?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Israel, and the only reason I wanted to speak up, but I can't remember what exactly was served, is that we had Pesach, but I was raised in a vegetarian home.
Ah.
Yeah, and so what's left and is repeated here is, now that I'm married to a beautiful Moroccan man, we don't have specifically a Moroccan cuisine, but we have, of course, the charoset, the Ashkenazi charoset with the apples and the wine and the cinnamon, and the one made with dates and rose petals. And so it's mostly, in terms of customs, Moroccan, but not necessarily the food.
Right. Well, I must say we have Knedlach, which is not Sephardic. However,
We have Knedlach too.
but you know, the point is that if you talk to 5 people, they will tell you 5 different things. Because, like I said, if you're in only the atmosphere of one tradition, it's different than being in the atmosphere with more than one at the same time. So we're not giving any specific recipes. My husband thinks that I should share with you my recipe for mayonnaise for Pesach. Now, I don't have it with me right this moment. However, it takes about 10 minutes at the very most, and you have delicious mayonnaise in your food processor. So if anybody would like to have a mayonnaise recipe for Pesach, you can please call me, and I'll give you my telephone number, and it'll be easy to explain separately from this. So my telephone number is 206-722-6869. That's my home number. And if you are interested to have the recipe for mayonnaise, give me a call.
What about sharopi?
Sharopi. I never made sharopi.
Auntie Rosa.
Auntie Rosa.
In the Pontiac.
1 cup, we would get 1.
Maybe you want to explain what sharopa is,
Yeah,
because there's
sure.
people here who don't know.
It's sugar. Sweet.
Sugar and water.
Syrup. Sugar
Yeah.
water. Yes.
What do you
I
do with
think-
it?
What'd you use it for?
What do you
Yeah.
do with it?
On masa. On masa.
Oh,
You know, it was just plain. And if you read the recipe, I can't remember where I read the recipe one time, but it says you have to beat it with a wooden spoon,
Yes.
oh.
specific, because they didn't, I guess they didn't have mixer. And it comes out like, well, it's almost like a frosting. It gets
It is,
thick.
yeah.
It's like just eating sugar on your matzah.
Yeah.
Sugar
What's
syrup.
that recipe, actually?
Well, I don't have the recipe right here.
Yeah.
But there are, you know, in the
think-
in the call cookbook, I'm sure there's a recipe for sharope.
A bowl
Yeah.
of water, add sugar and stir.
Okay.
And I think there's sometimes a little bit of nuts in it. Some people use.
And I
to
think
put.
the temperature, when you cook it, I think the temperature is very important.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sure.
Too complicated for me now.
Well, Jeannie taught me how to make mayonnaise for Pesach. And how many years ago was that, Jeannie? 20 or 30 years ago?
I have no idea.
And it was a revelation. I mean, you have to have a food processor or an immersion blender.
Yeah.
And it's really miraculous to watch it all come together, and it's absolutely delicious. So
And it's very
I recommend it highly if you're a mayonnaise person.
Yeah,
But I'd like to share kind of what we do because we're kind of like a mixed marriage here also. So my kids, I don't think have ever had gefilte fish because Morris never liked gefilte fish. So we've always had salmon con huevo y limon. That's their thing. And so last year, it was a weird year. It was just me and David last year because Seth lives out of the house. So I wasn't going to make salmon con huevo limon for two of us. And he found out about it and he said, what do you mean we're not going to have salmon? It was like the highlight of Pesach for him. So I at the last minute ended up making it. So I have to make that. And of course, my haroset recipe is from my mother-in-law, which is an Ashkenazic recipe, I think. It's apples, walnuts, and raisins, and a little bit of wine or grape juice, something to mix it all together with. And so that's special. My family loves that. And then another thing that I make for Pesach is potato kugel. That's another Ashkenazi thing that they really, really like, and matzo ball soup. So it's really surprising to me because anyway, they just love it. And both boys have made it on their own. Like I was out of town one time and David made a huge pot of matzo ball soup I came home to, and Seth had made it on his own matzo ball soup. It's pretty remarkable. So those are our standard things that we do for Pesach. And of course, she also taught me how to make jam for Pesach.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's very simple. You don't have to buy it in a jar.
Yeah, I always make pressafuchis for Pesach. I know most people just make it at Yontif time, but
Yeah,
I always make it at Pesach too because they can eat prasa every day
What?
of the week.
Pressafood. What is it?
Prasa.
Oh, leek patty.
Patties.
Oh, with the meat?
No.
Mm-mm.
It's matzah. It's leeks, cooked leek, ground. Cook the prasa, and then you grind it, and then you add matzah pieces, and the egg, and salt and pepper, and you fry it.
Now, when I make mine, I add, I'm into onions, so I like it a little bit stronger. So I caramelize onions and throw it in,
Oh,
Oh.
wow.
Interesting.
and it's good. It gives a good flavor. One of the things that I make every year for Passover is an apple jam. My recipe came from my aunt, and who got it from, I think, Ida Mezistrano.
Mm.
But it does require a lot of cooking, and it takes a while, but it's delicious.
Well, that's the thing. If you have special things that you make for Pesach,
Yeah, and so
Regina, what do you do?
Well, actually, you can see I've been looking up recipes. And here's quickly, sharope. Okay, it makes it 1.5 pounds, 3 cups of sugar, 4 cups of water, half an egg white,
Oh,
1 teaspoon lemon juice, and then concentrated orange blossom oil, orange
Oh.
blossom water.
Oh.
That's it. I won't read you the directions, but that's the
How about
I'm
Haroset?
gonna
recipe.
make
So if anybody's interested, call me.
fry.
Make
It's
Haroset?
all sugar. It's low calorie.
Oh, yeah.
The Haroset with raisins.
Yes.
And also,
Talk about that. Yeah.
And dates. Do you ever do dates?
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Moroccan.
there was Rodes Li and Tekindali. But the ones, from what I understand, Rodes used to make the Haroset with just the raisins with pits.
Oh,
Oh.
Yeah, and they grind. My mom used to grind them up. If I remember, am I making up something up, or does anybody remember that?
I've never heard of raisins with pits.
I think the dates have pits.
Dates.
Yes, I know.
But
Yeah.
those for sure were not ground up.
It's like clear as day.
raisins to
they don't
start
fry.
with, or seeds.
I tried to change up haroset one year and it did not go over well. My boys are just, especially David, he's just so traditional. He doesn't like change at all. I mean,
That's men.
I wonder, do you all say when you eat the charoset, regardless what the origin is, why do we eat it only once a year? It's so good.
They're good. Yes.
Well, that's what makes it so special,
Uh-huh.
you know? When you
Well,
have,
A minute.
we only have 1 minute left.
We have
Oh.
1 minute left. You know, I wish we had a lot more time and that we could actually share real recipes.
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
anybody is, anything that we've talked about tonight that you want the recipe for, you can either contact Jeanne or myself, either email or, and we're happy to, you know, pass forward.
Yeah, the 2 recipes I put in La Beau's are winter recipes. If you guys, I don't know if you have ever made that matzo roca before, but it's like, they call it matzo crack because it's delicious. And that's the only dessert I make anymore because it's just such a winner. And the same with that lasagna, so.
lasagna, huh?
Sorry.
Thanks, guys. This was really fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very good. Nice to see you all.